audience applause for the T-Money and Stitches show. Another episode. So there's this homeless guy, man. His name is Russell. And Russell was like going through my garbage can one day. And I walked outside and I was like, what the fuck are you doing? And he looked up at me like a fucking squirrel caught in headlights. And he was like, oh, I was like, yeah, get the fuck out of here. So he walked away. And then 2 days later, I saw him walking down the street with like a bunch of scrap metal and shit. See, I used to think, like, if somebody was going through my garbage, that they were looking for food. Yeah. But nowadays, motherfuckers are stealing identities with nothing, with like a bank statement, dude. Like I'm like, holy shit, this guy could be a thief. Yeah. So, this fucking dumbass walks into a bunch of businesses that live by us and he says this, hey guys, I'm thinking about starting a business with my food stamps. May I place a luncheon at the lunch hours on your business parking lot? He was going to set up a table and serve hot dogs with food that he bought from food stamps. That's welfare fraud. He's going to every fucking business saying, hello everybody, can I run an illegal business while I steal from the government?
That's retarded.
He's that fucking stupid. So anyway, he did set up shop with he didn't have any propane. You just got to picture like a kid's lemonade stand, except a fucking homeless man is standing behind it trying to sell hot dogs and shit. Like it was set up like a lemonade stand. So he goes into like the back of Kroger's or something and digs a bunch of pies out of the trash in the dumpster. And he takes all these fucking pies and all these fucking rotten hot dogs and opens up shop. Well, I saw that one day. I drove past.
So he's a retarded asshole.
Yeah. He's a moron. Just like Forrest. But, when I drove past it today, dude, it looked like a fucking car had gone through there, dude. There was shit everywhere. There was fucking pies in the middle of the road. It looked like somebody slammed into it with their car.
Serves him right.
Yeah. What a dumbass. Hit it.
A rock hit it and suddenly fell off a cliff.
And that's why it smashed like this, in a U shape.
Yeah, it's like, why does your whole car smell like gasoline? And I'm like, well, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Gotta dump my nuts into something. Oh yeah, the POF scene where Ron walks into a bar with his wife and there's all these people speed dating around him. And all of a sudden this girl comes jumping up and sits next to Margaret and starts talking to Ron. And Ron's just like, yada, yada, yada. And the woman's voice fades out and then the buzzer goes off. And they're like, and she's like, so, are you even here for a date? Who is this? And he says, why the fuck would I be here for a date? And she points to the sign that says, 1 free beer for the POF daters or something. And he's like, oh.
I see what's happening.
Yeah, he gets this orgasmic look on his face. So then all of a sudden, they bring him his free beer, and he goes, slams it down. He says, all right, Mara, we're out of here. And it's like supposed to be their anniversary, and that's their date. He did nothing but drink beer and date another woman for 40 seconds. And, he walks out, and there's cameras out there, and they're like, so, did you find somebody, sir? And would you mind if we use this in a commercial? And he's like, and they're like, that's why you got free beer. And he's like, oh yeah. And then he goes, I found somebody. I found Margaret. And he's like, and they're like, wow, so what made you so interested in Margaret, sir? And he goes, well, I had to dump my nuts into something. And that airs on national television. Everybody sees that. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Bad best.
Yeah, dude, it's like I get so much pleasure out of destroying shit.
Well, I mean, chocolate's pretty addictive. I mean, it's not like you're gonna have withdrawals, but you'll probably think about it. You just have to replace it with something else pleasurable that's more healthy.
Like Ron Wetzel's new pornographic magazine. For only $2.99, you can see my hairy ass.
Worth every penny.
Margaret bought one. Take you, Margaret.
Eventually, like in the Don Pretzel show, Forrest obviously is gonna get revenge on Ron.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, because nobody's just gonna sit there and take shit their whole life and then not get revenge.
Hell yeah. But we have to show the scene of the Duck Duck Goose. And we have to like over dramatize him sitting around in a circle. And then like fucking a miniature Ron that obviously came out of another woman's pussy is running around and he taps fucking Forrest on the head. And then he runs and he's like duck, 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 and then he goes, goose! And immediately Forrest starts going, ah, and starts crying.
And Ron's like,
and then he gets up and runs around and sits in a circle and everybody's standing there staring. And then like Forrest comes back 45 minutes later and Ron goes, he's back! Anybody up for a game of duck, duck, goose? And everybody's got like wiffle ball bats in their hands like, yeah, let's beat the shit out of like duck, duck, goose and smack him in the head.
Doc.
Goose. Yeah. And they just, there'll be scenes where Forrest is just getting the shit beat out of him. And that'll be like his shitty upbringing. That'll be one of his shitty upbringing stories.
Yeah. He grows up to be an assassin.
He grows up to be a loser.
Yeah, I can't see him being an assassin.
Yeah.
He's not good enough for that.
I can imagine him painting himself orange and trying to hide behind a bush. He would not make a good assassin.
Wearing orange camo.
Yeah. Dude. You know what I just thought of?
What?
So we could take Ron Pretzel, and turn him into like this fucking god-awful, terrible, horrible psychopath, sadist.
Yeah. There has to be revenge, otherwise people won't even kiss.
Do you remember the story of when the guy walks up with a big check and he hands him the check?
Yeah.
Do you want to tell that story?
Problem is, I don't remember everything I said.
Okay, so this is what happens. Ron Wetzel, or a character that you had created that we never really came up with a name for and we don't really remember a whole lot about.
Yeah, just somebody who basically just wants to take over the world.
We'll use Ron's character in this, even though we're going to change the character. So the story was, all of a sudden, like, Ron's sitting there in his chair, click, and then click, there's like some woman getting fucked in the butt, and he goes, click. Fuck it. And all of a sudden he goes, ding dong, and Ron goes, So he gets up and he goes to the door and hears Forrest screaming upstairs, like squealing like a pig, and he's like, "Forrest, shut up!" Fucking. So he opens up the front door. There's Publishers Clearinghouse, and they're like, "Congratulations, sir! You just won $10 million." And they give him this big check, and he looks at the numbers and goes, "You made a grave mistake, pal. Bow to your new dictator." Then Ron goes out and buys a bunch of islands and jets and tanks. And he goes to war
on his own militia.
Yeah. He goes where his own militia, and they run off with chocolate. That's what we deal in this house, you old chocolate.
You got chocolate, get the fuck out.
Without my chocolate, I'm like Forrest. I shout and pout. It's the only cure the doctors have for gout. When your mom is crying, tell her it's her fault. Make a bitch feel bad even when she's old. Oh my God. And don't forget to take their jacket when it's nice and cold. Oh my God. So, we were living in the Miamisburg house, and Tyler lived there for a lot longer than I did, and the neighbors would talk shit about him and piss him off, and then I moved in. So I went out to meet the neighbors. Tyler, I'm going to tell you what really happened that night.
What night?
When the fire department showed up.
Oh.
But you didn't see them?
Yeah.
Well, actually the cops showed up.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, for the purposes of this story, it was the friendly fire department. Who cares? So anyway, it was the cops. And earlier that day, while it was bright outside, Sunshine and Gavin decided that they were going to start a fire. Because our fires were taller than their house. And fucking Blaine had complained to your dad about them. And your dad asked me about them. And I said, we will keep them under control. And literally that night we went out and made a fire that you could see over the river. In your backyard. And so fucking Sunshine and Gavin come out. It's like the middle of the day. Hang on. Stupid bunch. But so anyway, fucking Gavin and fucking Sunshine were out, and they started this little fire. And I walked into the shed and grabbed the 5 gallons of gasoline, and I was going to go set it next to our fire and start picking wood and putting it in the fire for us. And, fucking, they're like, hey, we want to talk to you for a minute. So I came over there, and they're like, hey, we were thinking about having this fire tonight. And I was like, what's your idea of tonight? It's the middle of the day. And they're like, well, you know, we'll probably stay up till about 8 o'clock or so. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's cool. And he had like this tiny little fire. And he was like, so, you know, fires can be fun when you're around people, man. Do you want to come over and have a fire with us tonight? And I was like, well, that depends. Are you guys alcoholics too? And they were like, oh, yeah, honey, go inside and grab inside and grabs these fucking wine coolers. She's like, "Here, you want one?" After she opens it for her husband like she's some good chick. And fucking, he sips on it. He's like, "Ah." And then she hands me one, and I go, "Ah, done." And they're like, "Oh, well, there's plenty more in the fridge for you guys." Like, I could tell they had a 4-pack in there probably. And
They couldn't even talk to me.
so I was like, "Well, to be honest with you, your fire sucks."
Is that what you really said?
Yeah, like I was trying to be polite, but then I was like, "Yeah, well, to be honest with you, your fire sucks." So anyway, fucking, I was like, "Matter of fact, here, let me help you with that." And I went and I grabbed a can of gasoline, and fucking Sunshine was up, and I guess she was grabbing another one for me, and Gavin was just standing there like, and I went, goosh! This huge fucking gallon at one time hits his little tiny fire and goes, and dude, it's taller than him, and he was like, "Oh my God!" And fucking Sunshine runs out. She's like, "I'm calling 911. I'm calling 911." And I'm like, "Don't you fucking dare!" And so anyway, the fire goes down, and I grabbed you, and it was like getting nighttime, and that's when we started our own fire.
Yeah, I wasn't out there for that, I don't think.
You weren't. It was right before I was getting ready to start a fire for us. And so I went inside, grabbed you, started a fire. Then all of a sudden I saw the police pull up. So I walked out front, and Gavin and Sunshine were talking to the cops, and they separated me from him. And I said, "Sir, you can look back in my backyard right fucking now. I promise you. We are adults, and we have this fire under control, I promise." And they kind of peeked around the corner, and they're like, "Okay," you know what I mean?
I thought the cops came after we put a fire, on our fire.
We did. They did come after. It took them like 30 minutes to show up, or an hour or something. It took them a long time to show up.
They called the cops?
They called the cops. And I heard the word, the cop was like, he wasn't on his radio, but I heard the word arson come out of one of their fucking mouths, and it might have been the cop. And I thought that he was like, they were getting ready to arrest me for arson.
Alright, what
And
is arson again?
Arson is where you try and catch somebody, or that's when you succeed at catching something on fire, like somebody's house or a building, which we didn't do. And I told them there are rocks all around this. There are rocks all around their fire. Everything was safe. I had the whole thing under control. No, I wasn't trying to burn anybody's house down. This is exaggerated, da-da-da-da. And the cop kind of, I don't know if he shined his light, but he did look around and see your back was turned at a fire, a very large fire that had bricks around it. And you were sitting there with your back turned or something. So they're like, "Okay, everything checks out." And dude, ever since then, I was like, "Javin, I don't know what the fuck you told the cops, but I heard the word arson over there. And I swear to God, if you ever get me arrested, I will fucking kill you." And then he was like, "Oh yeah, well that's why I carry a gun, pal." And I was like, "Oh, okay, all right." That very next day I came home from work, got drunk, and went over there and said, "Hey Gavin, I'll give you $50 to punch me in the face right now." You remember that day when I had you punch me in the arm? I was like, "Tyler, hit me as hard as you fucking can."
Yeah.
And that was me making sure that I could fucking take a punch. And when I learned that I could take a punch, I was like, "Gavin, I will give you $50 fucking to punch me right fucking now. Punch me one time, I will fucking end you." Gavin was like, "No, man, no." And he closed the door. I was like, "Faggot."
I wish I would have done that.
I tell you what, I had it set up to where your neighbors would never fuck with you again.
If they knew what was going on in my mind, then no one would ever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And who knows what they thought? I mean, who gives a fuck what they think? But they weren't gonna fuck with us anymore. That was the end of that shit. I was fucking done.
Yeah.
Listening to the Javin and Gavin's son, or whatever the fuck his name was, in Sunshine's. You know, I tried to be friendly with him at first, man. I really tried. I did. But they were just so gay. I mean, God.
They're soft.
Right. Like, dude, like me and you were like chugging whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were just like, you would chug like a whole glass of whiskey and take like a sip of Diet Coke or whatever it was you were drinking.
Yeah.
Or Kool-Aid. And I would just fucking like down an entire bottle of myself. And like Sunshine and Gavin's over there like, huh, maybe we should invite them over to our Seagram's wine cooler party. Like, what a fag. But dude, that whole time they were trying to get me over there. They wanted us to have small fires. They were gonna say, so I guarantee you they would have said something like, when we were at the end of it, they'd have been like, well, see how much fun you can have with small fires, guys? And I would have probably beaten the shit out of them there. I mean, there's only so much of that I can stand. You know what I mean? That's a guy that needs to get his ass beat, dude. Like,
yeah, him more than anybody I can think of.
Yeah.
You want to go inside for a little bit?
Yeah, dude.
I mean, just the reality starts to set in of the wild lifestyle of making money and being funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fucking record producer walks up to your house with a check, like, congratulations, Tyler, you just made your first 10 millions. And you say, you made a grave mistake, pal.
Oh, you're going to regret this. Might be the worst move in history. Mark it down. I assure you, mark it down. This is the day where the world is mine, literally. Yeah, I know I couldn't move the world. I don't know, I wouldn't really want to.
I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. You know,
I just want to rule my own world.
yeah.
I want everything not to be so chaotic.
Yeah, I know. Can you imagine being the Queen of England? What a loser.
What a piece of shit.
Yeah, really. They are fucking broke as fuck over there now. Oh God, they're broke as fuck. Because this whole Chinese virus, coronavirus. Yeah, they are broke as shit. But so are we. And part of that was because Trump kept passing out those damn stimulus checks. And it's like, you know, it's cool, but not at the expense of our country. I mean, fuck, you know. But all them, this is the only country that I know of where the government supports whores. I literally, like, women seriously do this. They'll go out and they'll get pregnant by 5 fucking, like, 5 different dudes, and they'll have 5 different babies, and they'll live in a HUD property, and they'll get, like, 18 grand in food stamps a month, and fucking, like, all kinds of, I mean, they take advantage of the system, dude. This is the only country in the world that supports whores. I have never even heard, like, if you go into Europe, no. That doesn't happen. They don't get a bunch of free shit just because they got knocked up. That's why marriage is so important.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. I mean, if I get married, if you get married, I suggest getting a prenup, big time. Because you don't want to work for a whole bunch of shit and then have some stupid bitch take half your shit.
Yeah, that's one thing I don't like about the idea of marriage.
Right. So get a prenup.
So they can't do that.
Right. So they can't take your shit if they leave you. Because they'll sit there, they'll be like, well, Your Honor, 12 years ago, our maids quit, and I had to do the dishes that night. And the judge is like, oh my God, that's terrible. And then he looks at you with a real hard face. And then he says, you know, well, tell us, what do you think that's worth? And she's like, $3,000 an hour. And he's like, sold. That's what judges do. I mean, they always side with the women for whatever fucking reason. And then next thing you know, you're paying her $3,000 an hour because she put your shoes in a box in your closet. Like you're paying, you're losing your house, you're losing your car. Like they're fucking you, and they do that, man. Like women fucking do that. It's so fucked, but you got to be careful. And the only way that prenups are like condoms, man. They protect you from bitches' bullshit. Remember that. They protect you from bitches' bullshit. Yeah, and women, they do get pissed off. Like, I knew Asia for 7 years. 7 years, dude, and I never asked her to marry me. Because I would bring up the prenup thing. And she would get so fucking pissed off and so angry about it. She's like, I'm not signing that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, listen, if you don't sign this, we're not getting married. I'll tell you that right now. I will not lose.
So you already proposed to her?
I never proposed to her because she would not sign a prenup. I would just talk to her about it. About like, hey, you know, listen, before we get married, we got some shit we got to work out. And then I'd get a real hard look on my face. And she's like, well, what are we going to talk about at the lawyer's office? And I was like, well, you know, it's some real hardcore shit. And if you want to be with me, this is some real shit. So, fucking, eventually she pried it out of me about what it was about. And I was like, fucking, we're going to get a prenup. And she was like, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't trust me. And, you know, you can't trust me. And I can't, oh, all those times I said I loved you. And blah, 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 blah. And it's just like,
probably planning to...
She's planning to take half my shit. She's going to put me on child support for kids that don't belong to me because she knows I will pay child support because I've got a job.
And my cousin went to jail for not paying child support.
Yeah, they can throw you in jail over that.
Yeah, he was in hiding in most of his life. It was like 20 years before the cops got him.
20 years before the cops. Well, see, that's his problem, dude. I wouldn't hide from him. I wouldn't be on the run my life for child support. I would stand in front of the judge and tell him I don't have it. Sorry. You know, what are you going to do to me? It's like, if you throw me in jail, I can't pay child support. So how long are you going to keep me in jail? Whatever. Oh, I will try to go out and find a job that pays $500,000 a year. Then you go work at a gas station. And they're like, they're only legally allowed to take 33% of your paycheck. Or I'm sorry, 15% of your paycheck. It's 15. So you stand in front of a judge and he says, we're going to take the maximum amount out of your paycheck then if you can't pay that $100 million. And you say, You mean to tell me that I could have an army of Uncle Stitches for pennies a day? You tell that fucking judge. Oh, you make him afraid.
That's the way to beat the system.
Yeah. I mean, you're not going to beat the system, but I tell you what, that judge is going to remember your name. Can you imagine David Ciccarelli being our judge? I feel like, dude, you remember me. Come on. You expect me to show up in jail, right? I mean, fuck. You know? What do you mean? Of course I got a fucking switchblade in my pocket doing 85 in the school zone. I mean, come on. And David's like, give me a break. And David's like, well, you know, I can forgive you for the felony, but I cannot forgive you of the misdemeanor speeding ticket. And I'll be like, David, I was drunk. I told you. And he's like, do you want this to turn into a DUI? And I'm like, do I have to? David's like, all right, man. Fine, you get away with a speeding ticket, but I tell you what, if you ever enter my town, and I'm like, you'll what? You'll what? You'll suck my dick again, bitch?
Wasn't he the one who peed his pants?
He shit his pants.
Oh.
Yeah.
And pissed his pants.
I think he pissed his pants, but I know he shit his pants. Because my mom had to go clean it up because my brother was gagging. So, for those of you who don't know,
That probably made your brother hate him.
my brother already hated him. I hated him, but he just kept coming around. Like, he'd be like, hey, you want to come to my LAN party? And I'd be like, yay. So, I wouldn't have anything to do that weekend because naturally all my friends were in jail or something. And, so I go over to these fucking like little LAN parties where all these computer geeks are like, look at this, isn't that so fun? This is Halo. And I'm like, oh my God. So I get into his dad's liquor cabinet and I drank half of the booze that was in his cabinet. Like, I drank like 8 bottles of liquor.
Would you be dead?
No, dude, his dad was buying really expensive liquor that came in really tiny bottles. And, dude, like, I had no idea that I was drinking a $6,000 scotch. I had no idea. And, so anyway, naturally, my dad gets a phone call about the liquor that's missing when my son came over last night. And my dad says, oh, for crying out loud. And he was like, well, you know, I want to tell you, Mr. Thurman, because it was when the walls were on the phone and you could listen to people's conversations. Yeah, well, I had a telephone in my room. And fucking, I was listening to it, and he was like, well, I just want to tell you, Mr. Thurman, that the total bill comes to $18,000. And and my dad's like, I'll be there in a minute. My dad comes stomping upstairs, like I just hear this boom, 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 boom. And my door just fucking flies open. I'm sitting there and I'm like, hey, Dad. And he's like, don't you, he doesn't say this, don't you sass me. No, but he's like, don't you feed me lies. And I was like, what's going on? And he was like, bullshit, you fucking know what you did. And I was like, no. And he was like, you know how much booze you drank over there at Mr. Ciccarelli's house, the lawyer? And I was like, no. And he was like, because he knows. And I was like, I was like, Dad, I'll be honest with you, dude. I was surrounded by computer nerds. I couldn't fucking take it anymore. I had a couple of drinks. And he was like, you only had a couple of drinks? My dad didn't know that I drank half the cabinet. And he was like, oh my God. So we get in the car, he goes down to the bank, he gets $18,000. He has to explain to the fucking lady behind the desk why he's withdrawing $18,000 on a Saturday at 11:59 a.m. right before the bank closes. And fucking gets back in the car, we drive over to David Ciccarelli's house, and he hands him the money, and David Ciccarelli's dad was like, ha ha ha, you know, I just thought it was funny, man. You know, you don't really have to pay me shit. And my dad was like, what? And he's like, I'm just kidding. I'm good, dude. I'm going to try a cigarette.
That was a new flavor.
Okay.
A new from last time.
This is pineapple. This is pineapple.
Watermelon berry.
Oh.
Angel's tears.
Now I see why the angels cry. Angel tears, everybody.
It's PCP in a can.
Wow, Tyler.
Oh, that's all that James Brown did. He would do cocaine and PCP.
Well,
it's crazy. That's a recipe for disaster.
You want to know the real thing about James Brown, Tyler?
What?
He was a loser. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Godfather of salt.
It'll be like a trending thing that everybody who watches this, like, they'll start having conversations with people when somebody's talking about somebody else. They'll always say, well, let me tell you about something. That guy was a loser. And everybody will be saying that, like, in school and fucking, like, in mid-conversations with people. Hell yeah. Man, we live in such a paranoid society that the scientists...
That's the way the government wants everybody to be. They want them to be scared.
Yeah, we live in such a paranoid...
Or unaware.
We live in such a paranoid society, Tyler, that instead of letting the scientists prove to the people that vape is more healthy than cigarettes, they went and they started making up their own random bullshit about it, telling people that it's worse for you than cancer. You should drink all the fluid in a nuclear radiation field before you vape one of these. Or something like, you know, talking about, I lost my lungs and my throat and my dick because I vaped for 10 minutes. You know, sitting there listening to bullshit.
Is that one of the reasons why you don't have a TV?
Yeah. I get so sick and tired of fucking hearing it, dude.
They've kind of backed off now because enough people have been mad.
They ruined the business, dude. They ruined it. So many good companies went out of business. Dude, it is so hard to find vape shops now.
Can't borrow your life.
Yeah. They're all going out of business, man.
Yeah, that's why I have to get all these on the internet. It's way cheaper on the internet than it is at the